Hey guys, hey people that are otherwise known as Squeak Freaks. How's it going? Like I promised before and like I talked about or I mentioned on social media earlier today, this is the latest and greatest episode of the Squeaky Unclean podcast. Not the greatest episode, but it's the latest, you know what I'm trying to say. Um, it's the one that I put out because I haven't done a lot of them. I've taken a bit of time off. It's just been a matter of timing and a matter of a lot of different things. I was buying a new camera. This winter was terrible down here in Windsor, Ontario. Like fucking terrible. First of all, my fucking chair broke down. My chair broke down because one night when I had a couple drinks, yes, it happened. It went down. This can happen to people. Had a couple drinks, didn't see a snowbank, and let's just say, long story short, fell on my back. And as I was trying to get up, like, you know how when you flip a turtle on its shell, it just kind of like stands around there and like wiggles its legs in the air, trying to figure out why the fuck they're not on the ground anymore. Yeah, so basically that night somebody called an ambulance because they thought it was a real problem. And basically what happened was, like I said, they called the ambulance. They came, they took a look at me. I was fine. There was not really a big problem, no injuries or anything like that. My chair, on the other hand, was fucked up. So the front wheels hit the bank so hard that it actually curled into the back wheels. And I didn't have a wheelchair for about 2 months, which means I couldn't do shit. I could not go around the city. I could not really do a lot of things that I normally can do, even if like I had access to cabs and stuff like that, and even if I had access to other things, I still couldn't do them as easily as I normally could or as I can when there's not as much snow. So that kind of fucked me up for a while. Didn't really have rides anywhere, and it was just really hard to book some stuff and just to book people. And I decided to just grab a new camera. So I got a 2-camera setup. The problem with today's episode, though, and like I said, I apologize in advance because we actually had it recorded. Everything was going fine, but both cameras died at about the 38 to 45 minute mark. So within the 38th and 45th minute, around that time, that's where the cameras go out. Then it just becomes an audio podcast. Just use your imagination. We're just in the C-Jam studios, so like I said, use your imagination. We still continue. We made it up till about an hour, I'd say 20 now if you count this intro, but like an hour 18, hour 20. It was a really fun time. I had my buddy Tyler LaBrecque. He'd been on a couple times, the first time with Michael Jeter, and then we did a solo one. But he's back today just to do one, just to get the podcast going again. We're going to get some new guests, some new people on. I'm going to try and mix it up, you guys. I'm going to try and mix it up and make it more fun and a bit more regular, because now that I have the 2-camera setup, you can kind of see what's going on, and, you know, it kind of feels like you're a fly on the wall. So anyways, enjoy this podcast that we're putting out right now. Also, I plug a few dates at the end, and Tyler talks about a few cool things at the end. We really get into it. So anyways, here we go. Squeaky Unclean podcast, along with the disclaimer. So here we go. Squeaky Unclean podcast starts right now. Hey guys, this is a disclaimer. A disclaimer means that if you're under the age of 14 or 15, you're going to watch this anyway. So it's your parents' fault for fucking up. It's a disclaimer. If you have kids and you're one of those hippie cool parents, or you really just don't give a fuck, this might be the time when you might want to be careful, and you might want to not want to let your kids listen to this.
Or you might want to call them in. Say, hey,
you
kids,
might want to do
here
that.
We go.
You might want to do that. This is the Squeaky Unclean podcast, everybody. We're about to go. Well, we're about to record in a little bit. All right, so here we go.
We're recording.
Here we go.
Why are you saying "here we go" and it's already recording?
Because I'm gonna stop it now.
Why are you stopping?
Because, well, I don't know. Fuck it. There's already a video to this anyway. Hey guys, hi. How's it going? You may recognize this voice from about 10, 11 months ago. You may be thinking, I've heard a black disabled guy talk to me before. I've heard him do this podcast, and now he is back, which is very kind of odd, because you never know. You know, you could just remember this voice out of the blue. You could just be, you know, on the treadmill, walking your dog. You could be fucking. Let's be honest. Some of you guys are fucking right now, and
that always gets. That's the lube in my relationship. The Squeaky Unclean podcast.
I had a girl the other day call me Squeaky Balls. Did I tell you about that?
No, please do.
Oh, it's this waitress. Well, she's a bartender, but she's at one of the clubs I perform at, and she's like, "Oh my God, there's Squeaky Balls." And I'm like, that's not a very good porn name.
Well, you know what? That could translate pretty pretty well.
It honestly could, dude.
Yeah. Because, like, dudes would hear about that name and be like, hey, did you hear about this new porn star, Squeaky Balls?
Squeaky Balls.
And like, you got to check it out.
I could be like a superhero.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Squeaky Balls.
Yeah, and have just, like, 2 old wrenches on your chest, rusty.
They look like cherries, but, like, they have, like, a white spot to show the polish.
Oh, Squeaky Clean.
Squeaky Unclean, dude. This is the
right.
Squeaky Unclean podcast for those of you who have never heard me do this before.
I thought this was the Clean podcast.
It was, but now it's Squeaky Unclean. See,
right.
it's like a little play on words, otherwise known as SUP. So, SUP to y'all listening and YouTube and podcast land. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, if you are fucking, and if she's riding your reverse cowgirl, you're just listening to our voices. So, basically, if you're doing that right now,
thumbs up to you, brother.
Smack that ass. Hit that ass, girl. While you're making sweet, sweet whoopee. Shout out to Sam Rager for that. She's a comic from Detroit. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Yeah, she's very funny. She does a bit about her saying she's making sweet, sweet whoopee, and it immediately made me think of the Recess episode when they're talking about sex or whatever. I don't know. I was really, really young.
Recess, the cartoon?
Yeah, the cartoon, man.
That was on YTV.
That was on YTV. It was on YTV and a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, they never talked about fucking on that show.
No, man. Like they talked about like relationships. Remember when Spinelli was into TJ that one episode?
Now, Dave, right there, I'm going to stop you. That's where a lot of your problems are deriving. You're associating sex with relationships.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, it's funny, man. Like in different cultures, I was chatting with a guy. He was Hungarian, and he said sex in his language can mean 2 different things. Obviously, sexually, it can mean that type of love, or like a love that you have for like your family and grandparents, which makes a lot of sense. Well, not that.
No, it does not.
I'm not talking about Oedipus. I'm not talking about Oedipus. Okay, we're switching the topic. Yeah, no, man. No, it's interesting because I think what we were chatting was like you know Brad and Angelina, right? Brad and Angelina Jolie. I mean, I don't know who she is. Like nobody really.
Why did you feel the need to put in her last name there?
What, Angelina Jolie?
Yeah. You're like Brad and Angelina.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if she's Angelina Pitt. I haven't checked that out. I haven't done my IMDb research, you guys. It hasn't been one of those days.
Oh, man. Now, Dave, I'm going to sidetrack you for a minute because you pulled up the computer there.
Yes, I did.
And the last research field that's up there says Magic Stick Detroit. What do you think that could be?
It's actually a performance venue in Detroit. Oh my God, you perv. No, man, no, I actually used to do stage diving. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention we are in the CJAM studios, you guys. That's why the shit looks all professional now with the 2 cameras set up and with a new thing that we tried to do here. The reason why I took so much time off is, you know, you got to regroup sometimes in life. You just need that chance to.
Dave, you actually started getting red.
What do you mean I started getting red?
Red.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I'm like a cartoon.
Yeah. Very talented.
It's like it's like when a Chinese person holds their breath for like a few seconds.
You can't tell if they're passed out yet or not.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't. He has a Chinese girlfriend before you guys start writing on Twitter. You did a bit in your act, which I think is one of the funniest jokes that you've done, because you've only done stand up about 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, I'd probably say closer to a dozen.
Okay.
Probably 7 or 8 times with yourself.
Yeah.
Couple of little runs at Milk. And then you and I did some very, very good fundraisers together that were both local, and we actually ventured up to St. Thomas, the elephant killing capital of Canada.
It is the elephant killing capital. And for those of you who don't know, we can always look this up, but essentially the circus was there in the 18th or 19th century, I believe.
Circus was there, and they killed Jumbo, the original. No, Dumbo. It was the character. It was the real life elephant that the Dumbo character was modeled after for Disney. Yeah. And it was Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they pulled in.
Bailey, yep.
And I don't know how you don't see a fucking elephant on the tracks.
Yeah, it's funny because like when we were on stage, you know, so sometimes for those of you who don't know, who don't do comedy or watch comedy. It's the same show in different spots, but it's not always the same show. I mean, if you've been doing it long enough and you have the confidence, you can riff, or we call riff or practice or fuck around with the crowd. And what we did was I actually had a bit in my act where I said I'd like to acknowledge the brutally obvious elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So Tyler was like, you should talk about the fucking elephant that they hit back in the day. And I said, and not the one that you guys hit a while ago. You know, and basically it was like, how much did you have to drink? How could you not see an elephant?
Exactly.
From that point of view.
I mean, when you're a train driver, a train conductor, a train engineer, whatever the fuck you want to go by, there is no steering wheel. It's go and not go. So
Pretty
I mean,
much.
it's not like, oh, he's veering into my lane, maybe I should slow down and change lanes. No, it's like if you see something on the fucking tracks, stop and don't kill Dumbo.
Exactly.
Plain and simple.
I guess they thought he'd be able to fly away.
Maybe he thought he'd just, with
Yeah,
the ears
he'd
and
flap his
be able to
ears
get off the track, no
because
problem.
that's ergonomically accurate.
Yeah. Ergonomically, aerodynamically, all of the anemically, it's that.
That's all fucking accurate, dude.
So back on track, Captain ADD,
Yes.
the Asian girlfriend
Captain
joke.
ADD, yeah, the Asian girlfriend joke, where it's about you, basically her texting with an accent.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is my favorite bit that you do.
Well, it's like it's funny because when I get a text message from her, I'll almost read it in her voice or her accent, if you will. So aside, it's a lot. The thing that I found with comedy is the best jokes that hit the best and hit the hardest are the ones closest to the truth. And for me, it was I got this text message from her one day, and she's like, "Are you hungry?" And I sent back, I was like, "Yes, I'm starving." And she's like, "All right, do you want me to make you some food?" I said, "Yeah, of course, that'd be awesome." And then what she texted, this is when she first got her iPhone, and the whole buzz about Surrey and how amazing Surrey was. Surrey, however, is a racist bitch because they don't take into account accents. So the text message that I got was, "Do you want fried lice?" So, but it worked out anyways because how my mind interpreted it was with her accent. So it was like, "Do you want fried lice?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I want fried rice," and she immediately was like, "LOL, oh my god, fucking Surrey." So, yeah, that was I had actually completely forgot about that one.
It's one of my favorite jokes that you do. We always kind of freeball shit like that. Even with the trip to St. Thomas, it was so much fun because it was like, for some guys, it was like their first road gig.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
actual road gig. Like we didn't have any stories like Led Zeppelin where like we were fucking up hotels and shit. Your dad was with us, so we could only get so crazy. I mean, your dad was probably slinging a lot of dick back in the day. He was probably doing what he had to do back in the day.
Oddly enough, I'm fairly comfortable with how much dick my dad has slung. And
man.
weirdly enough, I know that it's only been slung to my mother. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. But
I-
like you said, it was like a first experience for some of us to go on the road, and
It was.
the pre-gaming before. We're like, all right, let's settle down, get a couple drinks in us, calm our nerves, and we ended up hitting Swiss Chalet hard.
fucking hard.
I think Rob had Rob took it pretty easy. I had about four vodkas.
Yeah.
You had like Shirley Temples or something.
No, stop making it sound like I had some faggy drink, man. I didn't have
That dude, you put any type of booze into a Shirley Temple and it's
I do not.
badass.
When have you ever seen me drink a fucking Shirley Temple, dude? When have you ever seen me drink? I've never drank a Shirley Temple. I've drank Double Muds. We've talked about
Well,
that. at the loop.
that's like the cousin of Shirley Temple.
Okay, but that's a
they're in the
different
same
story.
family tree.
That's a different.
They're delicious, and you have no fucking idea what goes in them.
Oh man, I think it's like that for a lot of drinks though. I mean, I don't remember drinking a Shirley Temple that day. I think I had something. I think no, because that was when I never drank anything or like did anything before I went on stage because I was too terrified that I'd forget all my jokes.
Let that be. Let there be a little asterisk beside that.
There's an asterisk
Yeah.
beside it.
And just Google asterisk later.
It's what they put beside Barry Bonds when he broke the home run record, and Mark McGuire and all those guys that did steroids.
Yeah,
back
they
in the
hit
90s.
it, but
They hit it hard in more ways than one. Oh, God, it's so stupid. Yeah, man. Yeah, actually, let's talk about that because one of the things that I
Mark McGuire fucking?
No, well, that's a separate issue.
All right.
You don't need us to find that information out. You can do that by yourself. No, man, it was like the time when we were at the Loop here in Windsor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
infamous night of the falling totem pole.
The falling totem pole. Yeah, I mean, like, I want to get your perspective on this because I've told it on stage a few times, and I think I've told it on the podcast.
Well, really, I think my perspective is the only valid one because you've just gotten from what I've told you. And then you've taken that
It's true.
interpretation.
That's why you need good friends, people. Whenever you get drunk around your friends or your quote unquote friends, make sure they're good people and they're not gonna draw dicks on you. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah, no, I didn't
that
draw a
shit
dick
could
on
happen.
you.
You couldn't.
I could have.
Oh, you easily could have. You could do it when I'm fucking sober. You could just hold. Like I've realized this today too. A sidewalk can fuck up your day if you drive a wheelchair. It can fuck up your day because first of all, if there's no curb cut, it feels like it feels like an elevated step, literally. And also, if somebody's like doing renovation, you have to go on the street. So you're basically putting, like, you feel like a daredevil for like maybe 5 seconds because you're like, a car is coming, but I can make it, and you just kind of whip by.
Do you just keep telling yourself that I can make it? I can make it.
I can make it. That's always what I tell myself. It's like a chant. It's like the little engine.
Little mantra.
It's a little mantra.
I can make it. I can make it.
All right, man. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you had the best perspective of that night because I only remember.
So I forget why myself and a couple of people that I think it was one of Ferris, my girlfriend's friend's birthday, and so we were at the Loop. Yeah, it wasn't Halloween or anything like that crazy. So we're there, and hopefully with this story we'll get some notoriety and maybe free drinks at the Loop, because this is one of the funniest things that I've been able to be a part of. So we're there, and I'm texting Dave, hey, man, we're out. Come, let's get some drinks. So met us there a little bit after, I think, 12:30. And Dave showed up a little fucked up. But we were really, really enjoying the libation. I mean, we were well lubricated.
It's a fancy word for booze for the layman.
And so Dave's like, oh, man, you guys seem like you're having so much fun. I was like, we are. How'd you know? And he's like, oh, man. And it was getting a little bit later. And I was like, well, dude, you got to fucking catch up. So we went to the bar, and I think you did about 4 shots.
Yeah. Those are my shot days.
Yep. You did 4 shots. And then you're like, I'm feeling it. I was like, no, you should feel it more. You say you're feeling it, but you don't look like you're feeling it.
This is after like fucking 3 Jamesons. This fucking asshole. That when I do the joke, I said Tyler is one of those friends, because every guy has a friend that always encourages you to do stupid shit, when you know you shouldn't be doing it.
Well, like I don't believe in peer pressure. No. Like it never worked on me in high school, so I wasn't like pressuring him to get fucked up. But I was like, hey Dave, you know what you should do? You should get fucked up.
Yeah.
And you know what you should stop doing is not getting fucked up.
Yeah.
And so Dave just kind of took that as, 4-wheel drive, 5th gear. So
pretty much.
He's like, what should I drink? I said, they make these things called double muds. And he's like, all right. I was like,
never heard of that before.
You should,
never in my life.
You should get 2 of them. And so he gets them, and I think they're like close to $20 or something. And you're like, holy fuck, what is in these? Why is it so expensive? I was like, be honest, I don't know. Just drink it. And I think you made it about half the way through the first one, and you looked at me and you're just like, I'm fucking smashed, man.
It was like a Chappelle Show skit almost.
Exactly. So I gave him the old thumbs up. I was like, all right, we'll finish that drink and we'll go back over to the table. So he finishes the drink, and Dave starts walking like really, really good. Almost looks like he's like a professional Jamaican limboer at this time. Like he's just moving like water.
Like I'm practicing for Caravana. Like ahead of time.
Real low. He's getting real low. And so we get to the table, and I think I'm holding your man purse and your drink. And I gave
you that designation.
I was designated purse driver.
You were.
And so I put the drink down on the table. I put his man bag down on the table, and I pull the chair up right in behind him. And I pat him on the back, and I'm like, all right, Dave, the chair's right behind you. Just, sit down whenever you're comfortable. And he looks at me, he's like, oh, man. And instead of sitting down.
I remember none of this, by the way. Fucking none of it.
Dave falls completely stiff board forward into the table. The table does a 360 in the air. The drinks, not only Dave's drink, but everybody else's drink who I was at the club with that night, flies. I don't even know if they all hit the floor. And just mess, piss, shit, and Dave's on the ground. So I run over to Dave, and I grab him. I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, man, just fucking help me up. So I help him up, and I put him in the chair, and I like fix his shirt, and we sit down. Everybody's like, oh, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm good. And so I'm like, Dave, your bag's here. Your drink is fucking gone. I don't know where that is.
It ended up like on the other side of the room.
And Dave just kind of leans back casually and waves for me to come closer. And I get closer to him. He's like, man, my shoe. And I look down, and he's only got one shoe on. So I had to look around for a shoe, and it ended up, honestly, about 10 feet from us, under a table, like in the far wall where they have those booth tables. It ended up under their table. So I got the shoe back on him. I think about an hour later, we all left the club, and then I got random voicemails and text messages from Dave saying he was at some fucking Mexican place. And how do you say burrito in Spanish?
Which I was so fucked up. I realized that's actually how you say burrito.
Exactly. And then, I think you told me like 3 days later you found like rice in your chair.
Jesus Christ! That was like my new currency.
Yeah.
I found like I had traveled to like a distant
Well, for all you know, you had gone to Mexican town.
Yeah.
You know?
I pretty much had at that point.
Yeah, that was a good time.
It was a fucking good time, man.
So let's go back to the loop.
Yeah. I think we should now. Like they always have to carry me up there to get me up there anyways because of the stairs. I like sometimes I
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You had to leave your chair. That's why you were walking over.
Yeah, man, it's so awkward. Like I know how people feel now when they have to walk and get shit-faced. Like how do people just not fall all the time? Like you really had like it took me 10 years like literally riding a horse because I took horseback riding to get my balance to where it is.
Really?
And everybody else can just fuck off like that. And I'm like that's just nature trying to tell you something at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, man. So what's been going on with you? Like I know that your sister's in a show now. She's in
Yeah, my sister's the movie star of the family. Prior to that, I was the largest star because I had done a grade 4 speech presentation
you can't go wrong with that.
to my entire school. And then the asshole like beat me 2 years later by going to like district. So yeah, since then my sister's been the biggest star of the family. She's in a new show. It's kind of bringing balls back to vampirism, if you will. It's none of this
Twilight shit.
None of this Twilight, sparkly. You love me. You love the Wolfman. We're gonna love together, and we're gonna bang so hard the bed's gonna break. I mean, come on, that's not vampires.
It's not anything, man.
No.
Like they're even trying to remake Frankenstein. Like the biggest problem I think they're doing in pop culture with these movies. First of all, they're remaking all the movies, which shows you they haven't had an original idea for a long ass time.
Well, I debate that point, and here we go, Dave.
Okay,
this is when it's going to get
let's
juicy.
Debate.
I actually think it's because it's cool to be a nerd now.
Yeah.
I mean, when these movies and these ideas were first discussed and brought about, it was for a niche market, right? It was for a subculture of what was popular.
A quote-unquote cult, like whatever.
There you go.
It's like a cult classic.
And now it's like, you know, I don't want to say use the word nerd, but I guess it's that in the traditional sense. Counterculture. I don't know if you can even use that word anymore.
I wouldn't even know if I would, because to me it's like, and this is just a huge generalization, but I heard I heard this from another podcast. Actually, it's from the Beige Phillip podcast. I'll give them props before I say this. But
what are props?
You gotta make sure that you let them know that you're not taking their shit, because I'm not taking anybody's shit. I'm not.
So do you send something in the mail, or?
No, I just smiley face would be nice or something like that. You know,
right.
like hey, to me, as long as you acknowledge it, it's key, because it's like a slippery slope between plagiarism and whatnot. But anyways, one of the things that they brought up is that you gotta make generalizations to escalate the dialogue, and so essentially you're right. I mean, for the longest time, pretty much in pop culture, I think even before Revenge of the Nerds, you know.
Because even that movie was hugely poking fun at it for the majority of it.
It was mostly like almost a social satire, because, you know, it's funny like how girls are saying, oh, well, you're just a nerd. I'm not going to talk to a nerd and stuff like that. And I mean, I think there's a fine line between having pride and getting excessive about it, because I feel like once there's a fad or once there's anything big in our culture, we always go to the nth degree with it. We can never just let it be like, and to me, even to be a hipster, to be that is to almost reject what was previously brought, and then just say you reject
almost
it.
Like, I mean, essentially a hipster now is the majority, right? It's pretty much the norm. So it's funny because a whole kind of anti-everything movement is now the movement.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that's what people don't realize. As soon as you reject something, you say, I don't agree with this. That's still a decision.
Yeah.
Even to not make a decision is a decision.
Like the ultimate hipster would not leave their parents' basement.
Yeah. Well.
And the best hipster wouldn't even live in their parents' basement. So, I mean, it's what are you going to do? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
With the fedora on.
Yeah. Actually, I learned recently it's pronounced fedora.
Fedora.
Yeah.
It sounds like some shit that, you know, it sounds like a steroid.
I'm pretty sure I just made that up too. So
it's like a classic car from like the 80s. Yo, man, check out this Fedora.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's really odd in that respect how, like, you'll see like fads come and go like this, and some fads stick around. Like disco, obviously didn't stick around.
Disco was not a fad, David. It
That's
was
how
a
that was a-
movement. It was a way of life.
It was a way of life. Bell-bottom jeans and disco balls.
Fucked up way of life.
If you had epilepsy, you were fucked back then. You just didn't go out.
you just can't go out to the club. Disco
you
balls
just can't go
equal
out
death.
to the club.
Oh, man.
It was like a subtle way of saying no epileptic people. That's really what it was.
No epileptic people allowed. That was a silent protest. That's not even racism, is it? What is that?
No, I don't even know what it is. It's some type of discrimination.
Diagnosism.
Diagnosism.
Yeah.
I think we're just making shit up.
Well,
now.
to trademark that.
We could trademark it.
Yeah.
If we really want.
And then we'll license it out. Retire.
We could do that shit, bro.
But yeah, so back to the
Yeah.
superhero movies and stuff like that. I think it's two things. It's what we've already touched on, which is it's cool. It's in. And essentially, the world is so fucked up. We want to believe in superheroes. That's. I mean, look at how big Marvel and Disney are now worth.
Well, especially after the first X-Men movie, because to me the first X-Men movie kind of set the standard, and it kind of set.
Now, when you say first X-Men movie,
the very first the first one in like 2000, 2001.
Okay.
The Bryan Singer one.
Yeah.
Like I was maybe 11 or 12 when that came out, and then Spider-Man came out soon after. It's funny, like you see all these movies that they tried to redo in the 70s and the 80s, and they're shit.
Yeah.
Because they just, you gotta have the technology.
Well, it makes it that much. Yeah. I mean, if the technology's not there, you got to rely totally on storyline, and at that point. The stories themselves within the comic universe just were not that well developed. No. But I really am a big fan of a lot of the reboots as of lately. I mean, the new X-Men movies, huge fan. The Wolverine series. What's fucking Tobey Maguire, the first Spider-Man? I'm so glad they redid that, because the new Spider-Man movies are fucking 10 times better. New Batman. I mean, the Dark Knight series, Christopher Nolan. I mean, that guy deserves a fucking whatever award you can give him for that.
Absolutely.
The rebirth of that series to me was just amazing.
What I think they've done too is that they've kind of cut the narrative and the norms away from superhero norms and narratives, in terms of like, it's not just for kids. There can be some dark shit happen. There's some adult shit happening. You know what I mean? Like whether or not,
well, that's that entire Dark Knight series, right?
Pretty much. I mean, it's about murder and crime, and it's basically a reflection of a lot of cities in America and around the world that have socio and economic disparities.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, essentially, Gotham City can be placed upon.
It can be
the
anywhere,
backdrop
man.
Of
It could be New York. It could be Detroit. It could be like
Amherstburg.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You wouldn't have very many places to drive to. You're like, fuck, there's the river. It's the river. Turn around.
Well, there's a river in Gotham. There's a river surrounding Gotham.
I know, man. But
so then there you go. Boblo Island. Boblo Island's the new Gotham.
I know, but you wouldn't be able to.
Somebody call Christopher Nolan.
It smells so bad over there, though, man.
It's Gotham.
Terrible. Okay, I know, but still, like, you'd have to. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say?
Nah, David.
It still wouldn't work. It still wouldn't work. My point is that, like, I think the reason why they're so popular is because they resonate with people. Unlike like for me, I think superheroes resonated because it's somebody different, something going outside of the norm, feeling like you're a bit out of place and that you're not necessarily understood by people, and there's all these questions you have to encounter that are unnatural. But it's not just for a person with a disability, it's for anybody that's different. And so that's why I think the message is so much bigger than just a guy in tights beating up bad guys, quote unquote bad guys. If they really wanted to be up bad guys, they would probably go after Wall Street, but that's another story.
You know what, I just got a movie idea. You and I, we create a superhero. You had literally already said its name, Disability Man.
Disability Man.
And he goes after Wall Street fuckheads.
Okay, but how if the doors are closed and if the button doesn't work?
Obviously, we're still in the brainstorming part of this idea.
We still gotta work out the kinks, but
got a lot of stuff to iron out.
There's definitely a market for it. There's a niche market for it.
Oh yeah, yep, for sure. Telling you, Dave.
I know, man. See, you're an ideas guy. That's why I like to be around you, dude.
I'm full of them. Ask me a question. Ask me a question. I'll give you an answer.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, I read somewhere like about like a controlled explosion in terms of like nitrogen. What do you have to heat nitrogen to get a controlled explosion or to create an explosive gas?
Obamacare.
That's right.
We'll give you a second to let that sink in.
Obamacare and keep the Mexicans out. That's the mantra.
Yeah, did you hear about that? They just sent 10,000 National Guard guys down to the Texas border. Because that's going to help make America better.
And they're all kids, man. They're all kids. To me, it would be one thing if you knew that they were crime lords, if you knew that they had ties to maybe some drug lords or, essentially some organized crime, but they're kids. Most of a lot of them are kids. They're just looking to get into America because they're essentially the prototypical refugees. I need to do a bit more reading on this. I read a couple articles, but
now, Dave, are we switching to the World Peace Hour, or are we still on the Squeaky Unclean podcast?
The Squeaky Unclean podcast is a number of things. Essentially, it's the acronym is SUP, right? So we're talking about what's up. It could be what's up in your mind. What's
because
up on
we
the
started
mind.
out talking about we're the backdrop of people fucking.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about immigration reform in America.
Well, that's the beauty of this podcast. We can talk about whatever we want, for the most part. I mean, if you're still fucking, first of all, good for you because you've shown that you have stamina.
27 and a half minutes. That's you're a pace setter.
Yeah, definitely. You were like me when I first started, man. It's like you in your teenage years, man. Like when you didn't necessarily know what you were doing, but you could last long because you'd probably already come and you didn't even know you came already. That's happened a couple times.
It's like during a race, you blow a tire, but the guy still passes the finish line.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He could just drive on 3 wheels, man. Drive on that axis.
Just grind that fucker home.
Grind that motherfucker home. Oh my god, dude, this is crazy. Do you have anything else you want to bring up? I'm trying to think.
I don't know. While I'm reading here, you tell me what you're thinking, and we'll see what we.
I'm thinking about a number of different things, man.
Such as.
I don't know. It's really hard to It's really hard to organize your.
Oh yeah, I wanted to revisit the idea. The other night, Dave and I. We were out.
Yeah, we were
just out hanging out. And
doing a recap. We do that we have a recap, but we don't. We should podcast our recaps of the week, dude.
Well, that's what this fucking thing is supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I know.
So recapping.
Let's recap the fucking week.
Recapping. So yeah, Dave and I met up last week, and I started feeling really bad for Dave, but not why maybe why some people may think of. But I realized he would never be able to
dine and dash,
to enjoy the absolute wonder that is dining and dashing. And then it was funny because then we were kind of hashing out ideas in which that you could make it a success or ensure it would be a little more successful possibly. So one of which is you had to make sure that the buttons on the door worked, right?
Yeah. Also, too, if it was like a swinging door, like a saloon from, like those cowboy movies, that's ideal.
Restaurants have swinging doors.
Man, a lot of restaurants like to be authentic.
They don't have swinging doors to prevent disabled people from dining and dashing.
No, they don't. They just they should do it one-sided. So maybe I go on the wrong side and I fucking it's literally like a roadblock. That's what I was trying to do in high school, man. There were doors that I couldn't open, so people had to open the doors for me. And I actually said, what you should do is you should make it swing. You should just kind of reverse the locks on one side of the door. You should be able to push.
A dual hinge, just boom, boom, boom.
Just like a dual hinge, man.
So there's no more push-pull confusion.
The problem is, though, if you go to the loop and you have too many double muds, you're not going to know which side to push. So you'll probably break the door.
Either way, you're screwed.
You're pretty much fucked.
Either way.
No, I know, man. Yeah, no, it's we were also talking about how as you get older, your taste. It's not that your tastes develop a bit more. It's just you're a bit more selective with what you.
Are we
talking
after. About potato chips or?
Oh, it can be anything. I was talking about relationships and about quote unquote deep shit.
Well, I think when you're younger, you're obviously going to put up with a lot more bullshit just to get a little bit of ass.
Yeah.
And then when you're an adult, you're like, well, I've pretty much mastered my own masturbating techniques.
Pretty much.
So if there's going to be a lot of bullshit to come with. I'll just take care of this myself.
You're like, you can do it like a possum, where you can almost do it upside down now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can almost do it without even touching it anymore. Just focus. Mind, body, and spirit.
It's like how workaholics.
Hands-free jacking.
Hands-free jacking up.
Yeah, I wish. I wish. That would be something else. Really, would guys ever leave their house?
I think guys would lock their house. You
wouldn't even need to lock your house. Men would not leave their house if they could hands-free jack.
It would almost be like prison because you know how they just slide your food underneath the door.
But why else would you need to leave your house if you didn't need to find a woman? Really?
Wait, that's what fleshlights and
everything we do is the pursuit of the female.
Essentially, that's pretty much why things got built back in the day when you think about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So much. Just want to
Well, yeah, Chris Rock does that joke, right?
Yeah, I think
No,
it's
Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle.
Chappelle or some. I don't know. There's a variation of it.
Yeah.
Once you have an idea, it just kind of goes. Anyways, I think we're gonna wrap this up in like a minute. We just wanted to do a short one to kind of get this out of the way. We knew it was gonna be a bit rough.
You didn't even recap your week.
Well, there's not much to recap.
Well, what'd you do?
Well, we talked about masturbating, so that's a portion of it.
That was the large majority?
I wouldn't say it was about 30%. If there's like a pie chart, it'd be like 30%.
It'd be a nice piece of pie, though, right?
It would fill you up. If it was cheesecake, you might be packing another pounds a little bit. You might have some problems with that. Yeah, no. I just,
yes. I wanted to talk about the fire there that was out in Tecumseh.
Oh yeah. I didn't hear about this.
Well, it was a great big fire out in Tecumseh. It was a bad thing. A lot of people potentially lost their jobs, but the company's stepping up and they're matching payments. So, like with unemployment, the employees are going to get 95% of their regular pay. So that's good. That's not the funny part. However, I don't want to say funny part either, but I'll say the fucked up part, I guess, is because of one fire in a town, they declared a state of emergency. And, of all the other things going on, other places in the world. Like I saw this video on YouTube, it might have been last week, and there was a wedding in the Gaza Strip, in Israel.
Yeah.
And like fucking 4 rockets went overhead. And 4 rockets have gone overhead every day for fucking years in Israel and Gaza.
Imagine if like you live in that part of the world and you come over here when we do like 4th of July or Canada Day and it's just fireworks. That's gotta fuck up your weekend at least a little bit.
But yeah, the point is there's a fire in Tecumseh, state of emergency, everybody evacuate. And I understood the evacuation was because of ammonia, yes. However, a state of emergency was also declared. Whereas for other places, like a fire and a state of emergency is declared, like I think we've gone pretty lax and I guess pretty fanatical and fantastical in our existence over here. We've gotten a little too cushy. And yeah, so like in this YouTube video, there's these people and they're getting married, big fucking wedding party. People are outside, it's beautiful wedding, and then zoo, and like the first 2 that go overhead, nobody even fucking moves. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, when you hear a transport truck go by your house, like, oh, okay, yeah, that's there. It's like, and then for us, again, it's like fire, state of emergency. Oh my fucking God.
Do you think that's also because of our just sensationalism in terms of how we report stories? I was actually chatting with a guy where he said with a lot of news outlets, essentially that's what they do. If there's any story where they can present...
Oh, of course, it's human nature, right? It's the rubberneck effect. You don't want to look at an accident when you drive by, but you look at it. It's human nature. Same thing with the news. I mean, a lot of it's contrived to be over the end. It's a ratings race. Who's got the most fucked up, gruesome, craziest story? That's who leads in the ratings.
Pretty much. Also, it's selfishness too when you think about it, because a lot of times they'll do stories where they say this could affect your kids or your life.
Oh, of course. I mean, every household in America is under attack from Islam, Muslims, Toyota. Anything and everything. Yeah,
you can see McDonald's.
Exactly. Coca-Cola. It's sensationalism, right? I mean, you hit it on the nail on the head there.
Unfortunately, that's what gets ratings, though.
Exactly.
What gets ratings, and that's what makes people tune in. I mean, I feel like we have media literacy courses in university, and also
fancy book learning.
Sounds like it. No, it's just I think that especially with, I mean, you're a bit older than me, but with our generation, we're not that much older.
Let's pump the brakes there.
I've pumped it many times. It's fine.
Keep fucking pumping them then.
Why not pump them? Jeez.
I am getting old, dude. I got a lot of fucking gray hair.
I got gray hair when I was like 17. But the thing is, like, I never got carded when I went into bars, though. Like, when I go out.
Really?
Yeah.
I still get carded when I go to the LCBO.
Dude, they never carded me.
Really?
They never carded me. Like, I guess they don't want to, like, deal, because I could probably pull some shit. So
oh, dude, you so could.
I so could. That's what I was thinking about.
You could have been in there when you were 10.
I know, man. It's like I'm from like a European country where they just give you wine when you're like 6.
Yep.
My God, it's perfect. Yeah, dude. All right, I think we're gonna wrap this up.
You sure?
Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to plug? Because the only other thing is that I'm gonna be at Milk Coffee Bar tonight, in Windsor, Ontario. Oh yeah.
Are you even gonna have this uploaded?
Yeah, I'll have it
before milk time.
I'm a professional, dude.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. I mean, I also want to plug the Windsor Comedy Festival.
Yes.
Excuse me, Border City Comedy Festival.
Oh, you got to go back,
that up.
rewind it.
Yeah, we'll just, why don't I have to edit it out? It's fine. We know what we're talking about. Border City Comedy Festival at Rockhead Pub. It's going on now till about late September, because the finals will be at the Wackerville Theater. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, every single Friday. I already competed, didn't make it, but it was still a fun time.
It was a setup, Dave.
It was totally a
it was
setup.
rigged.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Fucking complain.
Nah, not why.
Crash your wheelchair into somebody.
Nah.
Take some legs out.
Because that's gonna solve everything.
It'll solve something.
It will. I could just say, hey, look, here's the bill. No, man. Yeah, no. But anyways, go to Rockhead Pub. Like I said, comics from almost all around the world, throughout Canada. We got some local guys. Come out and support the local guys. Tonight there's gonna be, like I said, a thing at Milk Coffee Bar, 9:30, Windsor, Ontario, downtown Windsor. What do you got? You got anything to plug, Ty?
I'm gonna get some new shoes soon.
Okay, well that's very important information.
Yep.
It is.
That's about it.
Aren't we doing a gig together at some point in time? I think we are. Yeah.
When and where?
Oh yeah. No, you mentioned like your dad had a gig.
Oh yeah, possibly. Big fundraiser for the Acquired Brain Injury Association of Canada up in Toronto. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yuck's down on King Street, I think it is. Dan Aykroyd's going to be there. I think Martin Short's going to be there. My Old Man's going to be there, and a bunch of other talents. So it should be fun.
I saw a picture of your old man, like back in the day, man, like the '80s. He was rocking.
Oh my God!
He was rocking that cop mustache.
That was actually those pictures were from 20 years ago.
Jesus.
And that was a comedy group that my dad was a part of 20 years ago, called the Young Offenders. And I don't speak. I try not to talk a lot of bullshit. Just then that way people take what you say a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
But my dad was pretty much the shit back in the day. I mean, they toured all around. My dad had gone all over Canada through Yucks. And then they were also, my dad specifically was also on 89X radio station for about a year and a half, 2 years. And he did a character called Bob, that Canadian guy. And it was fucking deadly. Because essentially 89X is a Canadian station, but they cater to both the Canadian and the American market. So my dad played this, again, funny, we're talking about sensationalism, this over-the-top kind of Canadian Doug McKenzie type guy. Every other word was A and maple syrup.
And moose.
Oh, yeah, and
hockey.
moose. Hacky. And the Canadian tuxedo. But yeah, it was that was around the time my dad snuck me into my first comedy show to see him perform. I was about 11 years old. And oh man, you learn some shit when your dad starts talking about his and your mom's sex life at the age of 11.
Yep.
Yeah. It was it certainly made for a very interesting dynamic in our household growing up, because my dad would always be running these jokes by me like, "Hey, Ty, so I'm fucking your mom from behind," and it's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, Dad." And he's like, no, listen, you got to hear the punchline. And so, I mean,
and you got therapy the next year.
Yeah, there's a lot of money spent in therapy. But no, I mean, some father-sons have different ways of bonding, hunting, fishing, whatever it is. Everyone's is different. But for mine and my father's, it was comedy was first. And then combat sports kind of took over from there. But still, when my parents come over to this day, or vice versa, when I go over to their place, it's, hey, have you seen this guy doing stand-up? And so that's something that we've always shared, because we've always both had a lot of admiration, I guess you'd say, for it, and appreciation, especially when it comes to stand-up, because that's really one of the toughest things you can do.
Statistically speaking,
is to get in front of a group of strangers and try and figure out what they think is funny. Because I mean, you can have jokes written for days.
Yeah.
But if they're not following you, if they're not on your jokes, then you gotta switch it up real quick and see what starts working.
And I find it's the subtlety of so many things, like the subtlety of how you do a joke.
Oh yeah, even like pausing or adding a break here and there, even a break to catch your own breath or to lick your lips. Sometimes that's all it needs to hit properly.
And I find a lot of the times too, sometimes the younger guys, they're just trying to get out their material fast. Like for me, I was just so terrified of forgetting my jokes.
Oh yeah.
Which, I did one time. even recently. But still, we just laughed about it and just kind of went along with it. But it's you're just trying to get the material out so fast. Sometimes you don't pause enough for the audience to laugh.
Well, I know I'm
a big thing.
Very, very guilty of doing that, especially when I first started out. I mean, I was very lucky to meet you, pretty much the birth of my career, if you can call it that. Though I have gotten paid, so.
You have gotten paid. We got paid a lot more than I did when I first started. I got paid shit. Actually, nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Nothing for the first few times.
But yeah, so I mean, you were very helpful with pointers, and like you were just mentioning, my biggest thing was, I've got an anxiety issue. So I literally only went on stage because my dad more or less bribed me.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, just because my dad's very active in fundraising, and he had this fundraiser coming up, and he's like, hey, would you mind doing 5 minutes? And for me at that point in time, 5 minutes was a fucking eternity.
It is a long time though, even for anybody.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even 3 jokes, depending on the length of them, is usually about 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, the build up and then the delivery, and
a lot of the times it's just set up punchline.
And I still have my initial jokes that I wrote, and they were fucking bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first crack at it, and I was staying up the night before, and I was going over. I was like, okay, this is a little bit of it's funny to me, but it's not really that. It's not broad enough. It's not. A lot of people are not going to find this amusing, and so I tore up everything and rewrote all my jokes the night before at 3 a.m, and was actually quite pleased with my set. Actually, you didn't see my first show.
No, I didn't.
No.
You showed it to me
and,
later.
Yeah, because I think my dad recorded, or my mom recorded it. And for me, like, one of my things to do with my anxiety is agoraphobia. So I have a fear of large groups, large spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And so you tie the two of those in together, and it makes for a wonderful combination. So I remember getting up there, and just, like, my fucking hands were shaking so bad I couldn't hold the mic. So I jammed my hands in my pocket, because I initially tried holding my notes, but my hand was shaking so much that I couldn't even read my own writing. And then from there I put it on the stand, and I tried holding the mic, and the mic was vibrating, so I jammed my hands in my pockets, and I just started talking, and I didn't take into account breaks, breathing. Half my jokes I said out of breath.
Mm-hmm.
But what really helped me halfway through was hearing my dad. I couldn't see him, but he was pissing his fucking pants.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did the joke that you've seen before, how my dad explained the talk, sex and babies to me. And so essentially the joke is my dad goes out and gets hammered because I come home from school asking about sex. And he does the entire talk with just hand motions. So
it was like a puppet show.
Yeah, it was a fucked up puppet show, and the birth
That's
canal
hilarious.
where my hands and my own face was the baby, and he's like, boom, there you go, there's babies. And
it's too bad the camera died. Fuck.
well, that one's still going.
No. Both these are down. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna
Then I'm gonna move this microphone, make it a little bit more comfortable,
I'm
so
just
I
gonna
feel
let
like I'm at CKLW or something.
I'm just gonna let the people know that we only. No, it's okay. We're still fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just logs back in.
All right.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is that, unfortunately, the camera the camera didn't make it. This is my first time where I've done the camera work, so just give me a break, ladies and gentlemen. I
Don't
apologize.
give him a break. Ride his ass for it. Tell him to get his shit together.
Well, that's going to happen regardless.
But yeah, so the joke is you do the A-OK with one hand, a little circle, pointer finger, thumb, the other 3 fingers are up. You make the pointer finger on the other hand point like a pecker, and then the pecker goes into the A-OK symbol. And that
for some people you need 3 fingers. Let's be honest.
Yeah, hot dog in the hallway. All right, and then you put your hands together.
Sausage.
I don't know, like you're doing. Jay-Z fans will know The Rock, and then
Rock,
you jam your face through the rock symbol, and that's how my father explained the birthing process and baby creation to me. And in delivering that joke, that was one of my first jokes. In delivering that joke, I just heard my dad pissing his fucking pants. And he was doing the old man thing of slapping the bar, and I was like, all right, this is gonna be okay. And then the rest of my set went really well, and you and I met, I think it was 2 months later.
It was 2 months later. It was at the if we brought up the story, I apologize, guys, but you know what, you probably don't remember. So We met about I think it was at the fundraiser in Tecumseh.
Yeah.
Is at the fundraiser in Tecumseh, and
Joe Schmoes, right?
Yeah. Johnny Shots.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. Yeah, my friend actually told me about the gig, and her mom worked at the same company as your mom did.
Who?
Was well, I don't want to give names, but we
can give names.
No, let's not do that.
Your name's Dave. My name's Tyler.
It doesn't matter. My friend told me about the gig.
Would you say it's redacted?
It doesn't matter.
It's blacked out.
It's pretty much, well, this whole section is blacked out because the cameras died. So this is all about. See, if you still are fucking, by the way, 45 minutes.
Champ.
Your bitch better never leave you, because that takes dedication.
That's iron dick right there.
If you did foreplay and you're doing other shit, maybe she's got vibrators.
Foreplay doesn't count in banging time though.
It's not about banging though. Like it's just about the act itself. It's about.
Because I could finger bang a chick for 8 hours, Dave. That doesn't count.
Well, I'd cop out after a while. Because after a while, it would feel like hand therapy. It's like physio.
Physio.
Yeah. So you have to be careful with that. Yeah, man. Yeah, no. And then we met that night. And then I saw your sister and her husband.
Yeah, because she did about 10 minutes that night too.
She did a set too. Yeah, she does like improv and stuff. Your sister's very talented.
Yeah.
Very talented. Yeah. You have a really talented family, and they're honestly some of the nicest people I've ever met. So.
Appearances.
Yeah, appearances are good. Yeah,
no, my folks are awesome. My family's awesome.
Definitely. Actually, the last time that we did the fundraiser was because I don't know if you want to talk about this, but like your parents have adopted kids for like the longest time, and I said I wanted her my intro. I wanted your mom to give an intro like we haven't adopted him yet, but he's gonna do this for you. Yeah, no, they're
yeah, I remember she did that.
Yeah, they're very generous people, is what we're trying to say. This is I knew this podcast was gonna be it was a good start. It was a good start to come back. It's been a long ass time, you guys.
Well, let's keep we can keep foreplaying this, Dave. We're 12 minutes.
Yeah, we
hit the 1 hour mark.
We could do the 1 hour mark. Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know what else. I've ran out of shit to say. But
So what's up with you?
You know what? I actually had this thought the other day. I think every guy and just every person reaches a point when you're at a transition point in your life, when you're just figuring out when things are a bit more clear than they used to be. You got to deal with less people's nonsense, and when you can just kind of focus on what you really want. Because a lot of the times it's funny, we focus so much on what others think of us and how the social norms fit into our life, when really we forget about who we are in a sense. So it's almost like getting back to the comic books, or the comic book movies, when the first Batman Begins came, where he went into the mountains and just kind of did a lot of thinking for himself. And
that's because he was rich and he could afford to.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just saying, the only way we would do that is if we wandered, or if we got stranded there, like the plane, if a plane crashed or something. But I think that it's important for people to have, I'd say, time to themselves, because a lot of the times it eliminates a lot of the proverbial noise. To have time to yourself so that you can reflect, and a lot of the times when you get that time off, you have the ability to come back with more energy, with more passion, and you remember what you wanted to do in the first place, and not just in terms of your passions, but just what you want to do with your life and where you see your life going and this and that. Because like I said, we forget that, so it was more so just that, I think, more than anything. And going back to school is important. Going back to school, surrounding yourself with better people, better friends.
Well, to build on what you're saying is just do what the fuck you want to do.
Yeah.
And don't worry about what other people think. I mean, I still, again, with my anxiety disorder, I still get really, really caught up.
Yeah, because I think what you said is that the best way you could describe that is that you're always in fight or flight.
Yeah.
In a way.
I'm always on go.
Yeah.
So regardless of what I'm doing any time or any day, the feeling that some people get when they're under extreme duress, that's what I'm like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really taught me to, I guess, appreciate and just fucking don't care so much. Obviously care about the things you need to care about. However, unfortunately, in today's day and time, a lot of people forget what it is that they're supposed to care about. It's not whether or not you got a nice car, you got a nice house, It's, you know, if you're alive and if you're healthy and if the people who you care about are alive and healthy.
Well, it's just, you know, especially as men, I find men are exclusive. And like I said, I heard this from Beige Phillip as well, but I also did a bit of thinking. Is that men, we attach ourselves to possessions, to what we can earn.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
well, we attach our value.
Yeah, our
to
values
that, right?
and our value, our thought process, and almost who we socialize with, who we interact with, because it's important for us to have possession, because if we're not making something in our life, or if we're not visibly, I guess, earning or making steps to what we want to do, a lot of the times that can fuck with your psyche, and you can feel like, oh shit, I'm a failure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I messed this up, or I haven't been doing this.
Yep.
You know, it's really interesting like that. And like, even with your anxiety disorder, I think we talked about this, like I said in an earlier podcast, but the only thing that's ever worked for you is cannabis. That's the only thing that's ever worked for you.
I thought we were talking about that, dude.
Oh yeah, we're not talking about
that? No, we're talking about
I was gonna say, the fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's me. Of course we're gonna talk about that.
We've talked about it like the last 2 times we've been here.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like Dave said, for me, I mean, I'd done the full gamut of okay, I'm not gonna say anti-anxiety medication, anxiolytic. Antidepressant, and I'd literally gone through about 24 different anti-anxiety medications, and it wasn't even touching what I was going through on a day-to-day basis. I mean, in a traditional pharmaceutical sense, they did. If you know, my idea was to be completely fucked up out of my mind, black out from time to time. Like I would be driving, and then all of a sudden it would be 3 hours later, and I'd be somewhere else. So, I mean, yes, I wasn't anxious during those moments because I guess I wasn't conscious either. But I have an amazing family doctor, and he brought it up, and I said, well, sure, why not? We've tried all this other stuff, and it was literally getting to the point where I was on so much anti-anxiety medications, I was then having to be put on secondary medications to deal with the side effects of those. Which, you know, I mean, you're now medicating a problem from medicating, and it's just very, very counterproductive.
And to me, that's what we've become in terms of not just with our healthcare, but with a lot of issues that you run into, whether it be mental or physical health. Oh, well, there must be a pill for it, or is there a shot you can take for it? Because people want to take the easy way out. A lot of the times, you know, obviously for you it's something different. Everybody's body's different in terms of your DNA and, you know, what you're predisposed to in terms of maybe, say, alcoholism or any type of mental disorder. But it's just interesting because up until they started using cannabis for medical purposes, there was always that stigma behind it, you know.
To cut you off, Dave, there still is. Yeah. I mean, I'll use this story.
It's getting better though, because
it's slow. I mean, here's the examples that I'm going to use. I mean, when it was brought to me, I said, okay, we'll go through with it. Paperwork done, sent off.
How long ago was that?
That was a year and a half ago.
Okay. So it's fairly recent.
Yeah. And when I spoke to my parents about it, both my parents are extremely open-minded. And my dad, was very supportive. Hey, if the doctor thinks this is going to work, all right. But my mom was still a little reefer madness type of mentality.
She got caught up in the hysteria a bit.
Exactly, and thankfully, I mean, she's come around. But I mean, for instance, myself and my girlfriend had friends over a little while ago, and I had left out under our coffee table my Cooking with Marijuana book. Yeah, and one of them was like, "Oh, what is, like, do you partake? What do you do?" And I was like, oh, no. Yes, I partake very much so. And they're like, oh, well, you got to be careful. And I kind of giggled, like, be careful, like what? Like I'm going to forget where I put it? Like what? Be careful. What am I?
I love that's what you thought of. I mean, that's like the story of mine, dude. I'm going to forget where I put it. It's going to suck now.
But I was genuinely like, what do you mean? Be concerned, like be cautious. And they're like, well, that stuff's dangerous. And these were university educated people my age, people 29 and 30 years old, that were of my generation, that were still under the impression that marijuana is potentially very bad for you.
It's just, to me, it's just funny though, because for so long it was classified as a Schedule 1 drug. And
It still is. It still is a Schedule 1 drug, meaning it has no medical benefit whatsoever.
Absolutely, but I'm sure a lot of people, and even in the States, other states would say otherwise. I mean, up until a certain point, it was a Schedule 1 drug, but they were testing cocaine, they were testing different type of methamphetamines.
Marijuana is still more, it's classified a worse drug to have on your person than cocaine. Cocaine Schedule 2, meaning that it has some medicinal value, whereas marijuana is Schedule 1, meaning it has no medical value whatsoever, and with a high potential to be abused, which is, to be honest, to me, it makes me laugh, because it's like you mentioned it earlier, hysteria. People have bought into it. They bought what was sold to them years and years ago, and it's just carried forward.
Well, it almost goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the media hysteria and how they'll pick stories that you can, it's not necessarily where you can just stretch the truth, but where you can sensationalize, or you can look at things under a microscope, so that you can pick these little intricate details that you can use to scare people. Because like, a lot of the times people are predictable in terms of their behavior. If it's something personal to them, if it's something they don't understand, if it's an instance where you have to step out of, a lot of the times, your comfort zone and your norms, that's fucking scary to a lot of people, and when you've been fed this information for your entire life, or when you hear, the quote unquote drugs are bad, that's that classic slogan, which is funny because coffee's a drug. There's so many other things that we accept as drugs. Pharmaceuticals are totally fine because the doctor wrote it down. It can do more damage than the last
study I read on the addicting properties of marijuana was that I forget the university. It was, excuse me.
What was it? University of Saskatchewan or BC? Because I know the University of BC.
It was University of Saskatchewan in partnership with a university out of Tel Aviv, because Israel has been very, very. They're on the forefront of the research, and they found that Oreo cookies are more physically addictive than marijuana.
Of course they are.
So
especially if you have marijuana, it's Oreo cookies.
Yeah.
That's a lethal combination.
But I get
that will mess up snack time.
I don't know what it is. I feel for people who are still ignorant to the fact, I guess, of its, like the legal, like you mentioned, the prescription that was given to me so many times before. When I was coming off that stuff, I had withdrawal symptoms.
Of course, because it's a physical withdrawal.
Like
withdrawal.
It was bad. I was at my sister's place. I was under the blankets. I was hot. I was cold. I was sweating. I was freezing. It was fucking nasty, and it's so counterproductive. And what really frustrates me is people. Okay, you can understand ignorance to a certain point.
Yeah,
ignorance
to a certain point.
Exactly, to a certain point. However, in this day and age, when 90% of the population has a device in their pocket that can literally connect them to the internet,
not just to the internet, to the world.
I still don't see how there can be so much ignorance. And I'm speaking specifically about marijuana, but that can be broadened to fucking anything.
Oh yeah.
Like, people just take what's told to them, and okay, mom and dad told me Jesus is the only way to be saved, and marijuana is bad, and if I have sex before marriage, my penis is going to fall off and I'm going to hell.
But you could also argue that's because it's coming from a position of authority. And ever since we've been children, infants, whatever, we've been taught certain rules of the world, and we've been taught to behave in a certain way. So in a sense, to go against that and defy that takes a lot of critical thinking, and it takes a lot of analysis in terms of the reasons why you've instituted a lot of these not just policies, but like a lot of these rules and a lot of these norms that you've placed. Okay, well, we can't do this because that'll lead to that. And a lot of it does make sense when you really think about it. But at the same time, at the same token, there's a lot of it that fucking makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense because essentially it's used for those who have special interests, who are part of special interests, or who just want to abuse their positions of power.
And I'm going to build on that point there, Dave, because my mom called me, I'm going to say about a year ago, shortly after I started using medicinal marijuana, panicked, like out of breath, panicked. You need to get off the pot now. I'm like, why, Mom? What's going on? She's like, it causes cancer. I saw it on Facebook. Go check my Facebook wall. So to humor her, I went on her Facebook wall, and it had two pictures side by side. This one is a lung of marijuana user, and this is a healthy.
Yep.
And of course, the marijuana user, it was all discolored and sickly. However, like when my doctor brought it up to me, a backstory a little bit, I did a lot of research myself. My girlfriend has access to a lot of research papers and databases, so I spent a very long time researching it. And one of the things that really surprised me is I also have asthma. I went from using one rescue inhaler a month to last year I used one. So it actually has bronchodilating properties in it, which was, again, something that I hadn't learned until I actually dove in and researched it. It was actually marketed at the turn of the last century, not the one that just passed, as a safe alternative to cigarettes for people who have asthma. So I pointed this out.
Because essentially it wouldn't flare up your asthma. And like if you have bronchitis, it won't inflame your bronchial tubes as bad.
Correct. It opens your areolas better, so you're able to intake more oxygen with less effort from your body. But however, to build on that point again, my mom saw this on Facebook, and all she saw was a picture. There was no research document attached to it. This was not from a reputable news source or a university, or it was not paraphrasing a research document or information. It was a picture with two pictures side by side spliced on it with about 2 sentences underneath it. And that was all it took for my mother to take that, accept it, and know it to be true. And it's like, well, wait a sec. I've got half a dozen research papers here that have been submitted by universities. They've been proofread, they've been peer reviewed, and they've been accepted. So it's like, okay, and still, even with that, it took my mom some time to be like, oh, okay. And that's one of the really scary things. I love social media. I'm a big fan of it. Yeah. However, if you're a stupid person, it is very, very counterproductive to the existence of the world.
But like I said, too, because critical thinking and because analyzing a problem from a number of different angles, not just the acceptable angle or not just from an angle that even you would have that you would have a contradictory opinion to. It's about looking at things. And a lot of the times, it's easier to do that when you're younger, just because you're not set in your ways. Even though you understand the world
even
to
so,
some level.
I mean, myself, it's like if somebody tells me something, you have to be intelligent enough to be like, okay, well, you take it with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you told me, oh, hey, all black people like big fat white chicks with big butts.
Well, that's true to some extent, but that's...
But I mean, I've also seen your taste in women, and that's not to be true. But
absolutely.
Just because you say it, it's one thing for me to go, yeah, okay. And it's another thing for me to go, oh, wow, geez, all black people must like big fat white chicks. You know what I mean? I don't understand how people don't pick up their phone, go on their computer, do whatever the fuck you have to do, go to a library, and just be like, well, I'm going to double check these information that Dave gave me. I don't know. I don't understand how some people can take word of mouth as...
It's almost like a psychological trick, though, in a sense. I mean, you see a lot with politics, with American politics especially, because essentially every single election you see, every single debate always seems like it's a battle between good versus evil.
Yeah.
Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you like the Tea Party or independent, it doesn't matter. Even up here in Canada to some extent, because in a sense our elections are becoming a bit more like the Americans, just in the sensationalism and just by the divisions of parties.
Well, luckily this upcoming election is going to be,
the federal, right?
You vote if you want legalized pot or not.
Yeah.
So pretty much,
so there's going to be a lot of people from my generation, I think, who are going to be.
I think it's going to be the highest young voter turnout.
Oh yeah, they're trying to catch some of that Obama fever, but trying to get a young candidate.
Well, essentially, that's what Trudeau's done, right? Grassroots campaign, and honesty. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy came out and was like, "Hey, you know what? I had a party a little while ago. Some people had some pot there. I did it. It's not for me. However." It's not something you should go to prison over.
Yeah.
It's not something that should fuck up your job application process or prevent you from getting a passport.
That's essentially what the president of Uruguay said, because that's the first country to legalize pot. Medical cannabis. And
no, they've legalized pot there.
Yeah, well, it's whatever you want to say. I don't even know why.
It's medicinal.
I don't even know why I corrected myself. I'm doing my own autocorrect. It's fucking crazy. But no, basically, that was his argument. He said, I've never even had a drink, I think he says.
He's lived a completely clean lifestyle.
Completely clean, sober, still looks, he's actually in pretty decent shape for his age.
He is. Did you see his thing on Vice there? I watched it a little while ago. Really cool. It was it wasn't the full one, but it was a 45-minute kind of addition to the first one they did, because the first one they did covered his election campaign, and the second one was he's now president. Now how's it working out? So they rolled it all out, and it was entitled "Smoking Pot with the
President of Uruguay."
Yeah. It was really well done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but like I said, it's so funny how he was able to get that position, or get to that position, because in a sense, he was liberal in the sense of like I said, he fought in the army. I don't know like all of his profile. This is I'm just repeating verbatim what I remember.
Poor upbringing.
Yeah.
Fought, like you said, had provided military service to his country. And his big platform was, removing state from your conscience, allowing people to make their own decisions for himself, because he completely legalized abortion, legalized pot, and there was something else. And the guy who interviewed him asked him,
and by legalize, I think we should explain for some people that don't know the distinction, because technically other countries have had pot where we could have it on you. Like Portugal decriminalized it. I know Portugal and like certain places.
Amsterdam for years.
Yeah, Amsterdam for years. But in terms of like having, basically decriminalizing is different.
Essentially, it's like buying a large amount of alcohol in Canada.
Essentially.
If you buy a certain amount, you need to fill out some paperwork. They need to know what. So you can grow up to 6 plants yourself in Uruguay, and you can just do what you want. And that was his big platform. Was, who am I to tell you what you can and can't do?
Exactly. And also he was treating. It's kind of funny because Dr. Carl Hart brought this up. I listened to a couple of his talks. He's the first. For those of you who don't know, check him out. He's really interesting. I actually sent this talk to a friend of mine. He's the first black professor at Columbia University to be tenured there.
Is that the psychologist?
Yeah, is the neuroscientist.
I've seen that. Does he have long dreadlocks?
Yeah, he's got dreadlocks.
That guy, I've seen him on a lot of stuff. Please continue.
Yeah, definitely. What he was saying is that essentially the way that we look at drugs, not just cannabis, but every single drug, alcohol, crack cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, should be treated as more of a health problem as opposed to a legal issue.
Well, and he proposed, correct me if I'm wrong, but to treat it as
a health issue.
As a health issue.
Which it should.
Oh, you've got pneumonia?
Yeah.
Oh, you're addicted to cocaine? It's treated the same way.
And he said a lot of things that I think if you're a liberal or progressive, or at least considering the idea of just listening to the argument, the idea, which I think is interesting that he proposed, is that we don't look at it as being anecdotal. Because a lot of the times the evidence or the reasons we get against perhaps decriminalizing or allowing people to use it is anecdotal. Well, it does this to your brain. Well, just say no. And a lot of the times law enforcement has that. Different figures in the community can have that. Maybe if you're a religious figure, whatever. The point is that we have to change the dialogue, and it has to be based on a health issue, but also we have to educate. And by educate, I think the example he used in the talk was that if you want to do methamphetamines, I've never done it. I don't know anybody that's really done it, but he basically said if you want to use it, don't take it at night, because one of the properties that keeps you up. And also, I need to look this up essentially, but you guys can look this up too. But essentially, the main distinction between crack cocaine and just regular cocaine is just it's a chemical in it. Essentially, it's like the cooking.
It's
the basin.
There's
cooking the basin.
And essentially that was a war on race. It wasn't even a war on drugs.
No, because really there almost wasn't a lot of distinction in terms of how it's made.
Well, it was up until it was a couple of months ago that Obama just signed that so that there's no difference between the two now. Whereas before, if you got caught with a gram of cocaine or a gram of crack cocaine, you got like it was 10 times the sentence or trouble you got in if you had crack cocaine. And that was in part, again, I've seen this guy in a lot of different documentaries with regards to it, that was predominantly in black areas of cities. So it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on race.
And it's also because I was listening to this guy. I think he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. He wrote for Salon, and I have my issue with Salon too. But this guy brought up a lot of good points. Essentially, that if you have a person in your society or in your community who is a different race than you, different color than you, if he or she doesn't have a job, then how are you going to get them? How are you going to make money off of them? Because essentially, a corporations ideology.
Well, the prison system's
Yeah.
corporate now, right?
Essentially, they're corporate because if you put these privatized prisons in these small little towns, that's your economy.
Boom.
Your economy is putting people in prison, basically. So any little minor thing you can think of, you need to have people in your prison because that's how you make money. So essentially, that's what it is. You think, how can I make money off this person? How can I exploit? How can I do it? It's not even about exploit. That's explicit. But essentially, what it is how can I get any type of money out of this person? How can I get this to work?
How can I profit?
Yeah, how can I profit? So what do? You put them in prison. Why? Because the state makes money when you throw them in prison. When you have privatized prisons, like I mentioned before, that's what your economy is based off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another element in terms of like the drug war. It's essentially the reason why it's almost been instituted for this long. Because also, with the outsourcing that America's gone through, and even with the economic crisis and the economy collapsed in 2008, you start realizing that, when your country doesn't make anything anymore, when you're going through that, it's really, really difficult to profit if somebody's not suffering.
What are we gonna do now?
Yeah. Like a lot of empires, that's just what you deal with, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's no secret in that respect. But yeah, like my point is, I think that it's changing though. Because especially with the younger generation, I find we have more questions.
Yeah, we're questioning the norm.
And I think we are bullshit detectors as well.
Yeah.
We're a bit more.
Well, I wouldn't even say bullshit.
that.
I think we're more resistant to hold off on judgment. Mm-hmm. Like if we're told something or learn of something, it's like, okay, but I'm not going to base my belief structure off that for a little while. Yeah. Whereas before it was like, the word of Jesus Christ. Jesus says this,
It's not even.
That's what everybody did.
Like I said, it's more of an authority thing. If you're spoon-fed information from the longest time, and from a young age, we're taught to obey authority, so it's really, really tough to deprogram somebody after a certain time. You drilled something into their head, as a.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also you have to have faith in the fact that people are gonna want to draw conclusions themselves.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this podcast has gone a bit longer than we thought it would, ladies and gentlemen. But the fact that you've stayed and listened is good.
And that you're still banging.
Yeah. If you are still fucking banging, props to you, dude.
Fingers don't count. Fingers don't count.
Props to you. You don't even need Viagra, even if you are old. And use it. It doesn't matter. Like I said, to me, if you can just keep it up after this amount of time, you deserve a medal. It should be an Olympic sport.
You should probably go to the hospital soon after.
But also, your poor fucking girlfriend or wife, because that pussy's done.
Blown out.
It's fucking blown out, son. Oh man, this is a lot of fun. We're gonna start doing this a bit more regularly. Again, it was you know what it was? I wanted to get the cameras.
You're making excuses.
I'm not making excuses.
You're almost apologizing.
Well, it's not like we had these episodes going before a little bit. But there was not as much repetition, It wasn't always like 1 week after the next. What I'm trying to say is that I'm going to try and do this on a more regular basis and make it better, more interesting. I want to give you guys.
How do you plan on doing that, Dave?
Well, that's because in 2015 I'm running for. No, this is my campaign. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not running for anything, you guys.
Why not?
First of all, that's a verb that is not. That's a verb that really doesn't apply to me if you know who I am. So. Yeah, sorry. I couldn't. It's like even the other day, I went to this barbecue, and they said, bring a lawn chair. And I said, I don't have to bring a chair.
I'd say go fuck yourself. If I was you, I'd say go fuck yourself.
I almost did. Even though they were my friends, and it was a birthday party. I don't care if you're 7. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck Chuck E. Cheese.
Goddamn, this clown. Who likes clowns anyways? All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, I appreciate you guys for holding out. We're going to start doing this more regularly. No more long months. No more long breaks like the Batman movie. It's going to be... we're going to bring this back. Ty, I think I'm going to have you on like every other week too.
Yeah.
Thinking maybe every other week so we could just recap and have these little discussions because they tend to just go on.
We'll call it like the chocolate milk hour.
The double chocolate milk hour. Oh, man. I'm so silly. Anyways, yeah. So... thanks so much for listening, you guys. I'll have this up at some point. Sorry about the video. Next time I'll bring the charger.
Yeah, get your shit together.
Be a professional. All right. Take care, Squeak Freaks. Thanks once again. This has been the Squeaky Unclean Podcast episode next year. No, no, it's gonna be episode 17 or 18.
17.
I forget. I don't know. I'll check.
Well, they
Anyways,
want to know which one it is.
They can read the episode. It's like I'm gonna number it. So
Are you gonna
There's gonna be like a manuscript for it. You know.
Really?
You never know. I don't know.
Why don't we bring like a person just to type what we say in here?
You know, just for legal purposes. I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Goodbye.